All right, welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast for March 27th through April 2nd of 2017. So first of all, I do want to start by saying that this video is different from mainstream astrology. The signs are different. So if you are new to the channel, be sure to check out the link down below to get more information on this because you want to make sure you're watching this for the right signs. But what we're going to do first is look at the week collectively for everyone. See all the aspects we've got going on and what's generally going on. And then after the collective portion, we'll look at the individual signs. So after this general reading, go ahead and click the link down in the comment section, which is next to each of the signs, and that's going to take you directly to each of your signs' videos. All right, so let's look at this generally. We've got a new moon coming into the week, so a new beginning. And it does often mean that coming into the week, it is a subtle time, a time of listening, a time of planting new seeds. And that's really what we want to do, is be flexible and adaptive and see what new is shaping up in our life. And again, in your particular sign's horoscope, we'll see which area this is associated for you personally. But for everyone collectively, it's going to be in Pisces. And so for the next 29 days, we're going to be developing these Pisces qualities. Pisces is essentially about finding peace in life, peace and tranquility. And the way to go, the way to achieve that is essentially through acceptance. Pisces helps us get more accepting in our life, particularly perhaps, maybe it's accepting ourselves, maybe it's just accepting life in general. All of this acceptance is what really brings about more peace and tranquility, and that's essentially what we're developing. So also over the next 29 days, we're also going to be developing our intuition very strongly. That's another aspect of Pisces, is listening to that inner beingness, that inner guidance, that intuition. So all of this is slowly shaping up Monday and Tuesday. All of this sort of insight, but it's more intuitive insight about how we can accept in our life, how we can surrender, and again, find that peace and tranquility. So the new moon is going to be conjoining up to Venus in Pisces, which does symbolize that collectively there is some new beginnings with our values and perhaps even relationships as well. But Venus has been retrograde, still is. So all of this stuff having to do with our values and relationships is all sort of we're all just learning still about it at the moment. There's something to learn about it individually, whether it's your personal values, such as your material resources or the sensual aspects of life, or if it's about your relationships. Maybe your relationship perspective is going through this reconsideration, relearning at the moment. So this new moon is going to trigger a new beginning with perhaps some new insight about relationships, perhaps some new insight about your values, and probably in regards to Pisces, how you can have more acceptance there. And that can certainly translate into much more gratitude, for example, with your material life. And in relationships, probably more acceptance and compassion and understanding and easygoingness and just allowing that energy to flow naturally. So that's the new moon at the beginning of the week. And as we go through the rest of the week, there will be more energy slowly but surely building. Then at the week's end, we'll be in the first quarter phase, which is about really taking action, taking steps towards whatever these new beginnings are. So the first half, really good for listening. Again, being flexible and adaptive, see what's surfacing in your life. And then as we go through the second half of the week, putting energy into that or taking the steps to cultivate them. All right, so that's the Monday energy, but also on Monday, Mars is sextiling up to Neptune. So Monday, Tuesday, we, I think, are willing to be quite tranquil and easygoing. And, Mars is about getting things done, and Mars has been very well placed in Aries. So our independence is very strong. Our confidence is very strong. Our personal needs are very clear at this time. So it's great for getting things done, but with Neptune, there's just this opening for doing it in a more receptive way. Perhaps it's, seeing where life is already taking us, and we're more willing to go in that direction. We're more willing to, listen to that intuition and put energy into where things are guiding us. So it can be for a tranquil first half of the week. It can be for a receptive one, easygoing perhaps, and getting things done in the process. Exerting the least amount of energy. because we're using that current of life. We're flowing with life. And with the sextile, there is a willingness to do that. Now, the sextiles aren't gonna, they're not like trines where they happen automatically, but there is an opening for this. And I think if you're feeling this, finding how you can, yes, connect to that flow and get things done in the process, or be direct, independent in the process. All right, so that's Monday, Tuesday. As we get into Wednesday, Mercury trines up to Saturn, which is nice. There's a bit of stability here with our mind and maybe communications. It could be really good for productive things. We'll see which areas this is associated for you personally. But probably the most important thing this week, aside from that new moon, is that Jupiter is squaring up to Pluto for the second time. So this is significant because it's involving two outer planets, two slow-moving planets, and collectively it's usually significant. So this aspect has been going on since November 24th. So late November was the first aspect with that. And now we have the second one here this week, and then the third one, the last one, will be August 4th of this year. So usually this middle aspect, which is the retrograde aspect, Jupiter is retrograde, going back over this square with Pluto, does suggest that there's some things that, yes, we are learning or reworking having to do with our possibilities and potentials. All right, Jupiter is the side of ourself that sees potentials, wants to expand. But in retrograde, we rework that, especially because Jupiter has been in Virgo. We are reworking the details of these possibilities. So with the square to Pluto particularly, this can bring up some fears or some inhibitions regarding these beliefs. Maybe we're not thinking positively. Maybe there's fears and maybe we're afraid of pursuing those possibilities and potentials. All right, Pluto's a very deep planet. It is about, these things surfacing that are essentially in our subconscious that might be tripping us up or might be blocking us. And it's because essentially with Pluto, it's the essence of fear. We may not recognize it as fear. It might come across as something else, but essentially this is what it does. All blockage, all prevention in terms of ourself and our growth is based on some sort of limiting belief system or some sort of fear. So this week, and particularly around Thursday, it's an excellent time to face those fears, to accept the worst, to accept all potentials, all possibilities with these, things we want to expand with or cultivate in our life. So the more willing we are to dive deep, the more willing we are to shed away all of these fears and inhibitions and transform our belief system to see things in perhaps a new way, in a grounded way, but still in a way of seeing potentials, saying that yes, things are expanding, but perhaps they're just needing to be reworked. Perhaps we're just needing to face some fears to do that, or take some steps that might require facing those fears to do that. Okay, because the squares are all about taking steps, so it is an excellent week to essentially initiate things. And that also coincides with that new moon from earlier in the week. But here, probably particularly having to do with the things that we wanted to expand in our life. So if you want a greater context of this, you can think back to late November. Was there something new at that point that you felt like you were facing some fears with to cultivate, to expand with, to cultivate those possibilities and potentials? Maybe there was something new specifically at that time. And so this week can certainly give you some clarity with this, something we're learning, and that's what the retrograde has been showing us. So some new belief system, some new perspective is now giving us, that new perspective, which is giving us the insight to then continue to take these steps towards transforming our belief systems and transforming these possibilities and potentials. So very powerful transit. And again, we'll look at this for your specific signs to see which houses are associated with this transit. Now, the last thing we got this week is on Sunday, Mercury is going to shift into Aries. So that's going to be certainly on some level less uncertainty. We've had all of this Pisces energy, and Mercury's debilitated, and Pisces really does not like to be there. This is our mind, which can be very dreamy in Pisces and very cloudy and uncertain. But now with the shift going into next week, there'll likely be a bit more clarity with our mind, probably a bit more sharper with our mind. And again, getting closer to that Mars in Aries, just having more of an insight about what we want and how to go about pursuing what we want. Okay, so our minds definitely becoming much more active oriented, much clearer, much more tangible, whereas before, and which will be the bulk of this week, very dreamy and receptive. But again, that's what this week is essentially about, is about cultivating those Pisces qualities, about using the intuition, for the guidance, and accepting things in our life for how they are in the present moment, and in that way finding the peace and tranquility. All right, so that is the week collectively speaking. Let's go ahead and look at this individually for each of the signs. So you can click the timestamp next to your signs down in the comment section, and that'll take you directly to your signs portion of the video. All right, Aries, let's have a look at your weekly forecast. So first things first, a new moon in your 12th house. So although it is an active time for you, you've got your ruler in the first house right now. So there is independence, there is strength of your, what you want and how to get what you want. However, with all of that going on, probably more importantly, you could say, there's all of this behind the scenes stuff going on in your life. It could be psychologically, spiritually, and all in all, the whole purpose of this, as I was saying in the general reading, is for you to find more peace. That's what the 12th house is essentially about, just like Pisces. So whether you're getting some alone time, whether you're working behind the scenes, whether you're more meditative or more accepting or getting more rest or something like that, it's a really good time for you to do that while still pursuing, those personal needs of yours. It is a very important time, I think, to get that R&R and meditative time, just to get more in touch with the spiritual dimensions of life and the spiritual dimensions of yourself, your spiritual beingness and even your psyche, psychologically, for those of you who are more inclined on that level. But anyways, your ruler is very well aspected this week. Mars is sextiling up to Neptune Monday and Tuesday around that new moon. So as you're sitting with this new insight about where you can have more tranquility and peace in all this and surrender, you do have this opening here where I think you are willing to go with the flow. You are willing to surrender. You are willing to, put energy into a direction that's much more receptive. So that can be very nice. And again, it can give you an easygoing and receptive nature these first couple days, or maybe even the first half of the week, in fact. All right, so along with that, like I was saying in the general, a very important aspect, Jupiter squaring up to Pluto. This is a bit involving your work, which we'll talk a little bit more about when we get to that portion of this. But, generally what you've got here is you've got all of this reworking you've been doing with your routine lately. There's been potentials and possibilities with your routine and your work and all of this. But it's all been going through this reflection or reconsideration with that Jupiter retrograde. So anyways, with the square up to Pluto, this can be that there might be some changes taking place this week, or some things that you can face and change within yourself to cultivate maybe better routine, or make some changes at work that are more in alignment with what you're about. But it may require facing some fears to do that. And it may require changing some of your beliefs to do that. So whatever it is, around Thursday, I think it's great to take some steps in terms of particularly listening to what type of new perspective you're starting to see in regards to your work and your routine and all of this. And from that perspective, take the actions that, if you're guided to, take the actions towards making the steps to cultivate those changes. Now, remember, Jupiter will still be retrograde, so it's all still supposed to be flexible and adaptive. But between now and August 4th, it's a really good time to take those steps with whatever insights you might gain regarding your work, routine, and even your belief systems, even your life path, very essentially with Pluto in your 9th house. Okay, but with whatever insights you get, great time to implement them actively, or in your life between now and August 4th. All right, so let's go and look at this in terms of finances. This new moon is going to be conjoining Venus, which is your 2nd house ruler of finance. So yeah, maybe there are some new beginnings financially here for you at the beginning of the week and for the next 29 days, and even 6 months in a larger sense. So when Venus is retrograde, though, it is still good to be flexible and adaptive. Some of you might be redoing the finances or the budget or investments or something like that. And that's what you want to do. You want to be flexible and adaptive still when it comes to the financial stuff. But there certainly could be a new beginning with it. And it probably has more to do with, again, where you can surrender and let go on some level with it. In terms of maybe something outside of your control with it or something like that, because Venus in the 12th is helping you more connect to, the inner values, the true values of what the finances and all this actually bring, and how you can connect to them on a level, not the money, because they're just pieces of paper, but the actual things that the money buys, or the finances, connecting and being grateful for the material values and the material abundance that you do have in your life. And, getting receptive with it and letting go and connecting more to it on an intuitive level, I think is excellent right now at the moment. And some of you might actually be making money or doing some investments that involve more giving things, like the 12th house, like social types of things, humanitarian things, spiritual things. It's certainly quite possible. So looking at the work sector, again, going back to this Jupiter squaring up to Pluto, yes, there could be some changes around Thursday with this. So again, with whatever insights you get between now and between now and August 4th, really good time to be implementing those changes. But there could be, I think the positive side to this, and it always is positive, but the easy side to this is that you'll likely start to see some new things. If there was anything uncertain or unknown since November 24th regarding your work, I think now with whatever this insight is, it could certainly help you then take the steps to continue to cultivate this area. And I do want to mention too that, Mercury, your 6th house ruler of work, has and will be this week in your 12th house. So again, it's all kind of behind the scenes. It's more about the spiritual process. That's really the essence of what's going on right now, is that all this stuff like the finances and the work and all this is really just the area in which you are most fundamentally developing more acceptance and peace in your life. Because that's really what life is about, right? Finding true spiritual happiness. And that's what the 12th house helps us do. So I think with that perspective, it can be great. But at the end of the week, going into next week, Mercury does go into your 1st house. So I think Sunday and onward, you'll likely start to feel probably a bit more clear in terms of the work or daily stuff, and your mind will certainly be clear too when Mercury goes in there. All right, so last, the relationships. This is also seen by Venus for you. So retrograde again, you might be reconsidering, reworking all this stuff. That is your perspective on relationships, or quite literally about relationships. And again, it's serving as more of the spiritual purpose here. And maybe it's connecting to relationships on a more spiritual level, or accepting level, or diving deep with your psyche to see if there's any past traumas or fears or things like that that you can release regarding relationships or something like that. But it doesn't have to be all challenging like that. It's just more about, again, peace and receptivity in your relationships, which is developing with Venus retrograde. And again, the new moon on Monday could signify for a lot of you that this week does suggest new beginnings with relationships, new beginnings with more acceptance, compassion, understanding perhaps, and easygoingness in those relationships. All right, so Aries, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. If you would like a personal reading, be sure to click the link down below for that. But have a great one, and I will see you all next week. Take care. All right, Taurus, welcome to your weekly forecast here. So let's first look at this new moon, which is conjoining up to your ruler Venus in the 11th house. So a lot of you are starting a new beginning in many ways involving your aspirations and your role in those aspirations. In other words, understanding more about how you can take some actions, perhaps, pursue some things to cultivate those future things. Some of you might be starting some new beginnings involving your network circles or groups or friends or things like that. So that could be surfacing throughout the week as well. So the retrograde side of it is that, with your ruler retrograde, it is still good to be flexible and adaptive, just in general in your life, and whatever these new beginnings are, just being flexible with those as well. In other words, there's things that are changing with what you're learning with your ruler retrogrades. The more flexible that you are, the more you can adapt to whatever new insights you might gain during this time. But you should be learning a lot about yourself as well, about who you are, what you want in life, and things like that. But that's part of this whole reconsideration process, internal process for you at the moment. But nonetheless, very good for planting new seeds with future matters, whether it's your hopes and wishes for the future, your aspirations, and or group or community related matters. Now, along with that Jupiter squaring up to Pluto I was talking about, a very important aspect this week is involving Jupiter retrograde in your 5th house. So a lot of you have been reconsidering perhaps the things that you are passionate about in life, and the things that are creative or things that spark that inner flame. So now there could be some insights this week with the square. And if there has been anything since November 24th that has been fifth house related for you, such as creativity, children, self-expression, small business, anything that's essentially a creation of yours, or something that you feel passionate about, this is now some new insight that's going to help you continue to cultivate that stuff moving forward. But again, with that Jupiter retrograde, it's good to be flexible and adaptive, and again, continue to learn about what it is you're passionate about in general. So with the square, though, they might be facing some fears. There might be some things that are uncomfortable that, you know, as you take the steps towards cultivating in regards to what you're passionate about, in regards to what's close to your heart, you're going to find that as you take those steps, you're facing those fears, and this can be a very constructive time to break through and transform this area of your life. All right, so that's very powerful here. That's going to be on Thursday exact, but let's go and look at the financial side of things for you. So Mercury, your second house ruler, is going to be trining Saturn on Wednesday. So there could be some support with the financial or investment type of stuff this week, around midweek. But I would say by the, so with that, I would also say too that going into next week, Mercury is leaving Pisces. So there will, on some level, I think, be a little bit more clarity about finances or investments if there's been more of a watery energy about it or uncertain energy about it while Mercury's been in Pisces. But Mercury is going into your 12th house, which is essentially the same type of thing. And this is suggesting that while Mercury's here, which will probably be for, I think, the next few weeks, actually, I'm not sure if he's going retrograde through here, so maybe longer, but he's in your 12th, so it's a good time to, yes, find a way to use the whole financial material aspects of life to find more peace in your life. So that could mean a number of things. It could mean just simply that by surrendering and letting go of this area, if it is an area of concern or something like that, that could be the means for you to find true peace in life, which is what the 12th house helps us do. For others, it might be that you're finding more intuitive ways of investing or, you know, working with finances. Some of you could be making money through more receptive means, such as through social work or humanitarian things or spiritual things, or even psychology, for example. You know, 12th house matters. But it's still, the important thing here to know is that it's still in the sort of back burner. It's still in behind the scenes area until Mercury does go into your first house, which will be, again, in a few weeks. But again, I have to get back to you in regards to how long Mercury will be in your 12th. But we'll talk about that probably in a future video. All right, so anyways, along with that financial stuff, let's go ahead and look here at the work sector. So Venus is your 6th house ruler, conjoining up to the new moon. Yeah, there might be some new beginnings with your work this early part of the week. But again, with Venus retrograde, it's good to be flexible and adaptive with all of that work stuff. But it could be that your work is inspiring you, or that your aspirations are requiring work. And that's Venus in the 11th house. So it's all part of these new beginnings, could be associated with this area of life. And you could certainly see them being cultivated here, you know, the work type of stuff over the next 29 days. And I would say in a larger cycle, the next 6 months, with whatever this new beginning is early in the week, probably having to do with your aspirations or group and community things. All right, so let's look at the relationship sector for you. This is seen by Mars. Mars is actually in good aspect this week, sextiling up to Neptune. So these first couple days, you could be feeling probably quite receptive in your relationships or easygoing when dealing with others. But Mars in your 12th house has been helping you connect your relationships in a more receptive way. And it's, again, also behind the scenes at the moment. So this could be about compassion in your relationships, developing that. It could be surrendering the whole perspective of relationships in your life at the moment. And also, too, again, through meditation and tranquility in your alone time, getting more in touch with this area. And in your relationships, I think developing more understanding, more compassion and receptivity, which is essentially what Mars in the 12th house is helping you do. All right, so Taurus, that's the week in a nutshell. The way I would sum this up is new beginnings in your 11th house. It's all about the aspirations now for the next cycle. Very good there. Conjoining your ruler means that you're starting a new beginning in many regards, even though you're reconsidering and reworking a lot of things, one of which is your work as well. The whole financial thing is still in limbo as Mercury, although leaves Pisces, does go into your 12th house. But you do have some support on Wednesday when Mercury trines Saturn with that this week. And yeah, Jupiter squaring up to Pluto. There is this whole transformation occurring with your belief systems about what's possible regarding the things that are close to your heart or the things you find fun and entertaining and playful in your life, creative in your life, which is what the 5th house symbolizes. All right, Taurus, so have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. If you would like a reading, be sure to check out the link down below for that. But have a great one, and I will see you all next week. Yeah, he is going to go retrograde through Aries for a while. Wow, all the way through May 3rd. All right, Geminis, welcome to your weekly forecast. So let's start by looking at this new moon that you've got in your 10th house of career here. So very nice. We'll talk more about this in the work sector too when we get to that section. But yeah, new beginning at the beginning of the week involving your career or anything else that you find productive in your life. For some of you, maybe it's not necessarily for profit like your career, but your productive life, maybe your public life for some of you, or anything that is about your achievement and your success. So listening to that at the beginning can help you see what these new beginnings might be. But as the week unfolds, really good to be developing that area. And I think with the conjunction up to Venus, there is a lot of new values that you're understanding or gaining about your career or work that you have been probably reconsidering or redoing lately with that Venus retrograde. Now, along with that, your ruler Mercury is in the 10th, so that's emphasizing more on the fact that this whole time period has very much been about your productive self. But Mercury is going to be trining up to Saturn on Wednesday, which does give you very good groundedness here midweek. So you could be quite stable-minded, quite constructive, really good for productive things or long-term things there midweek. So now looking at the financial sector, this is seen by the moon for you. So a new moon at the beginning means that there could be something new, as there often is, involving financial stuff or investment stuff every lunar cycle at the beginning. But yeah, as the week unfolds, maybe that area is starting to pick up and starting to be cultivated in some new way, or some fresh new things unfolding in regards to that. There might be some uncertainty about it. I do want to mention maybe second half of the week, while that progressed moon is in your 12th house, maybe over the weekend or something like that. But certainly once you get into next week, more of that developing through the lunar cycle. All right, involving your work, again, the career stuff is really being emphasized for you at the moment. So still great to be cultivating those new beginnings there. And any new insights you gain at the beginning of the week, excellent to be implementing. Now, along with your work too, Mars, the ruler of your daily routine, is sextiling up to Neptune. So there could be a bit of easygoingness actually with your routine this first half of the week. It could be that there's a bit of flow. Maybe there's some opportunity here to have a bit of tranquility and easygoingness in your work. And a lot of it has been about you pursuing maybe some aspirations or future things with Mars in your 11th house involving your work. And at the end of the week on Sunday, Mercury shifts into your 11th house. So going into next week, there could be even more emphasis about your aspirations. Very much so, actually, with your ruler there. So great to, this weekend maybe, great to sort of see what those future aspirations are and maybe start to gain a bit of energy and momentum. Not that you don't already have it, but a bit more energy and momentum to cultivate those future aspirations there. All right, so yeah, that's the work sector. In terms of the relationships, Jupiter squaring Pluto. So here's some challenging stuff, but I think it's all very positive in terms of the outcome of all this. Essentially what you've got is you've got all this reconsideration or redoing right now having to do with the home stuff or family or health things. That's very positive to, rework and redo right now. But there could be something maybe involving relationships that's a bit challenging, or something that is uncomfortable about it, or something you can challenge yourself towards cultivating with that. So as I was saying in the general forecast, this is all about transforming our belief system. And for you now, perhaps seeing relationships or the whole realm of it in a new way here midweek, and maybe facing some fears to take some steps to maybe make some changes in this area of your life that you feel like you're guided to make. And I think between now and August 4th can be an excellent time to make those changes, both with your relationships as well as anything else involving your personal life, such as home, family, and health. All right, so Geminis, that's the week in a nutshell. I would say fundamentally new beginnings with your career, productive life. That's all very much being emphasized, with a shift going into next week of more about those aspirations, future things, hopes, wishes, even some of you connecting with your friends or your network circles. But that area in terms of your aspirations is very easy going this first half of the week with that Mars. You got a new moon, cultivating a bit of the financial or some sort of new beginning there with the material stuff. And the relationships, that's the area where you can, I think, be the agent of change, face some fears to make some changes there, and sort of restructure this area for you going into the coming months. All right, so Geminis, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. If you'd like a personal reading, be sure to get in touch for that. There's a link down below. Have a great one, and I will see you all next time. Cancers, welcome to your weekly forecast. So let's start off by looking at this new moon involving, of course, your ruler, the moon. You do follow those lunar cycles, and at the beginning of the week, this subtle time. So lowered energy, really good for listening. I think a lot of the new beginnings are about what's possible in your life. Got a new moon in your ninth house, helping you cultivate a bit of open-mindedness and perhaps even adventurousness in your life. So some of you have already been focused on maybe higher learning, spiritual things, maybe getting some adventure in your life, travel or whatever that might be. But now there's a new beginning shaping up with that. So around Monday, Tuesday, just listening, seeing what new is shaping up with that area. And then as the week unfolds, continuing to put energy or take those steps towards cultivating that open mind, your adventurousness, and those possibilities and potentials of the ninth house. So, and then what you'll find too is as the week unfolds too, you're gaining a bit more energy and motivation or momentum as the moon starts to gain more solar energy. All right, so that's the self there in terms of what's generally taking place. And the new moon with Venus, conjunct Venus, could even be these new values you're understanding regarding these possibilities or regarding these more expansive things in life. The values of maybe your philosophy or, discussing philosophy or values of going for walks or whatever it might be involving that expansive stuff. All right, now looking at the financial stuff, the North Node has been transiting the second house. So again, generally last year and this year is just excellent for you to be learning about this area, cultivating it, starting some new things with it. And this week is certainly no exception, especially because in the general aspects, we do have a grand trine forming up between the North Node, suggesting more flow there to at least learn about and develop the financial sector. The new moon could also signify some new beginnings with finances at the beginning of the week because the sun does rule your second house. And so when the moon's over there, that could be a new beginning, as there is once a month, regarding finances and maybe some new things being developed throughout the week in that area. Now, involving your work, this is a very activated part of your life at the moment. You've got Mars up at the 10th house, giving you drive and motivation to cultivate your career or your productive life or your achievements in life. And I think that's still an excellent thing, especially because Mars is going to be sextiling Neptune first couple days of the week, giving you a bit of easygoingness to do that and finding a bit of flow, or maybe you're more tranquil with the whole process and getting things done more receptively. Now, Mercury is the other side to this. Mercury's trining Saturn midweek on Wednesday. So on Wednesday, you could be feeling quite maybe grounded or constructive with your, Mercury does not rule your 10th. Mercury, what I meant to say is Mercury is going to go into your 10th at the end of this week on Sunday. So going into next week, you could be feeling that now you have a bit more clarity. Your mind will likely be more on your career, on your productive life, and getting more tangible with the whole process. And that could be heralding a sort of, new constructive energy with your career going into next week. But the other area involving particularly your day-to-day work, Jupiter squaring up to Pluto is involving all of this work stuff. So there could be some transformations taking place with your routine or your work this week around Thursday. If there has been anything since late November that you felt like you wanted to make some changes with, restructure, involving your work, it's now a time when you can gain some new insights about this. And with these new insights this week, and it might be from facing some fears, but with these new insights, it is about then approaching this area with taking initiative, taking steps to make the changes you want to see. And it'll be an excellent time between now and August 4th to be implementing and taking steps towards these changes. Okay, so it's always good when there's a square with Pluto like this to be on the side of Pluto, to be willing to make the changes, to be willing to face the fears, to restructure this area if you are so guided to do so. All right, that's the work sector. In terms of relationships, this is seen by that Mercury now. Being trining up to Saturn. Saturn rules your 7th. So, there could be a bit of good communication, maybe just a bit of flow with the relationship stuff. Nothing major, but around Wednesday, good communication, good openness, maybe learning through your relationships. Things like that can flow nicely. All right. So Cancers, that's the week in a nutshell. The way I would sum this up is new beginnings, most certainly with the more expansive things in life. Things like your open mind, higher learning, some of you travel or adventure, or just maybe going for more walks or whatever it is, helping you access that spirit for life. So with those new beginnings there, you do have a bit of flow there with the productive career stuff. And the first half of the week, then midweek, maybe challenging yourself there to make some changes with particularly the routine or the day-to-day work stuff. And then, the relationships have a bit of support. And then going into next week, I think you'll find that you've got more clarity about your work and career, and you can really use that mental aptitude to constructively cultivate that area. All right, so Cancers, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. If you'd like a personal reading, there's a link down in the comment section for that. But have a great one, and I will see you all next time. Leos, let's have a look at your weekly forecast. So first things, looking at yourself, the sun, your ruler, has a new moon at the beginning of the week. So it is likely a very deep time for you, and it can be very good for connecting the deeper dimensions of life at this moment. This is what the new beginnings are all about. Over this next 30 days, you're going to essentially be developing more depth, more openness, more intimacy with life. And this is, of course, with yourself. So as you dive deep within yourself, within your psyche and all of this, you're really getting down to the core of what matters most. So very good to see what new things are shaping up Monday and Tuesday in regards to this. Deeper connection to life, maybe even deeper connection in your relationships, such as through intimacy and that sort of thing. Some of you, some new beginnings involving shared resources or inheritance or other people's money, things like that. So it's good to listen, see what unfolds, and then as the week moves forward, you can certainly be cultivating these new beginnings. Now, involving the finances, let's have a look here. Mercury, the ruler of your second, is trining up to Saturn. There's actually a lot going on with the financial sector. But in terms of the Saturn trine around Wednesday, there could be a bit of, stability or support with this area, which is nice. But at the same time, a little later, and pretty much the same time, on Thursday, Jupiter is going to be squaring up to Pluto. And Pluto has been in your second house. So you got Jupiter in the second house. This is where there has been expansion for you to cultivate savings, investments, financial stuff, whatever it is. But it's all been going through a reworking process, about the past month at this point. So continuing to be flexible, adaptive, see what new information you're learning, redo this whole area. That's really the key. But there might be some changes that you want to make here this week on Thursday when Jupiter squares Pluto. And you can get a glimpse of this by looking back to late November. If at that time you decided you were going to make some changes here that was going to involve facing some fears, to transform this area. This could be a week where you gain some insight, some new insight, and you may be willing to face those fears and to then implement these new insights moving forward. So very positive here in that regards. But the square is that we may not be, willing to face the fears, or there might be some uncomfortable energy or some steps that we might need to challenge ourselves to do in order to cultivate these changes that we do want to see. So anyways, between now and August 4th will be an excellent time for you to implement these things. And before that, in June, maybe some things moving forward in regards to this whole financial material stuff, if it's been more on the back burner or you've been reworking it. All right, I do want to mention too, at the end of the week, Mercury, your second house ruler, does go into Aries, coming out of Pisces, which is good because Pisces was giving a lot of uncertainty or something like that, just cloudiness or whatever, and even deep things, maybe even fears associated with that financial stuff, when Mercury was in the 8th in Pisces. But now going into your 9th and into Aries, both fire elements, fire house, fire sign, going into next week, maybe a bit more mental clarity and flow in regards to the financial sector, if there hasn't already been. All right, so that's the finances. In terms of the work, this is also seen by Saturn trining Mercury, so midweek, maybe there is a bit of flow with the routine, or there's some good information, good to and fro communication, correspondence, and all that can go well with the work sector. Now, with that being said, though, Venus, who rules your career, your whole career and the big picture stuff, is all still going through this reworking at the moment with Venus retrograde. So there is a new beginning taking place because the new moon is going to conjunct Venus. So there is a new beginning with your career in a way this beginning of the week. So see what surfaces with that, put energy into that, but again, be as flexible and adaptive as you can with Venus retrograde. In other words, with all this new insight you're going to be learning regarding your career over these coming weeks, that's going to change things. So you want to be flexible and have a plan A, B, C, D, whatever, so that when the new insight comes in, you're able to adapt and adjust and pivot into the direction that is best suited for you. All right, so let's look at the relationship stuff. Not a whole lot here, but Mercury trining up to Saturn again can give you some good communication, a bit of flow with relationships midweek. But this whole area is really releasing some past energy. Still have the South Node in the 7th house, so as it has been this year, it's very much about clearing, all the old energies, the attachments, the old patterns, the unhealthy stuff that, is involving relationships. Or maybe you feel like you want to continue to make some changes in your relationships so there's more health and more balance in this area. But with the South Node, maybe there's some perspectives or patterns you got to release to bring more health to this area. And this is also, you can really be developing your independence right now, which is really the major theme for you this year as it was last year. And that can directly assist your relationships, because as you're gaining more independence, more clarity about what you want, what your personal needs are, that does balance out to those relationships. You can then put that energy into the relationships so there's more health in that area. All right, so Leos, the way I would sum this up is a new moon in your 8th house. Great time to get deep. Great time for psychology. Great time for transformation, change, breaking some patterns, having intimacy, openness with life. And some new beginnings maybe unfolding with your work with that, with the conjunction up to Venus. There's this financial stuff that's being reworked that I think we can make some changes with this week with Jupiter square Pluto. That can be very positive. And with the relationship stuff, maybe some communication, but there could be some good flow with communication this week with it. Your mind's clear with it on some level. But again, it's all about this transformation process and going into that independence with your North Node in your sign. All right, so Leos, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. If you'd like a personal reading, there's a link down in the comment section. But let me know if you have any questions. Have a great one, and I'll see you all next week. Virgos, let's have a look at your weekly forecast. So let's first talk about this Jupiter squaring up to Pluto midweek because it is involving a Jupiter in your first house, in your sign. So this is where, like I was saying in the collective, where we can be facing some fears, be making some changes. And I think this is very much going to be emphasizing your personal wants and needs and the things that are your goals and the things you want in life. So this has all been being reconsidered at the moment for about the past month while Jupiter's been retrograde. So it's still important for you to be flexible, adaptive with everything you're learning about yourself and about life with the retrograde, because with all the insight we gain during the retrograde, it's then important to put that energy forward. But we want, we have to have different plans, plans A, B, C, and D in different areas to put this new information and be flexible in order to utilize it. So that is important with the retrograde. But with the square up to Pluto, you may be finding that you want to face some fears this week around Thursday. You may want to make some positive changes with yourself or where you're headed, where you're going with your goals. Some of it might have to do with facing some fears about the past or involving your home or location or family or your health. And that's been Pluto really helping you restructure that area. But whatever it is, you can get a glimpse of this by looking back to late November of last year. At that time, did you feel like making some changes to face some fears, to transform yourself, to transform your life in some way? And if so, then this could be a week where you gain some insight about it. You're seeing things in a new perspective, your belief systems are changing, and you can certainly put in those steps to cultivate whatever these changes are that you do want to see this week. So it can be very constructive. It's just the square. It might be uncomfortable to do so, or it might require some intention and action to do so. But, being willing to change, being willing to face fears can result in some very positive things. But I think all the positive stuff is happening very naturally anyways. So that's probably the most significant thing you've got this week. But on a minor note, your ruler Mercury has been transiting your 7th house of relationships, which we'll look at, very much emphasizing that area for you. This week really good for those one-to-one connections. And at the end of the week, you'll likely notice that if you have been a bit on the unclear side of things with Mercury, your ruler debilitated in Pisces, you'll likely gain a bit of a lift of clarity or insight going into next week, and you might feel that this weekend on Sunday. Also around Wednesday of this week, Mercury trining Saturn does give you a bit of groundedness and stability during the work week. Now, the financial sector, we've got Venus retrograde conjoining the new moon. So there is a new beginning with your finances at the beginning of the week. But again, this area has already been so important for you to be flexible and adaptive with too, with Venus retrograde. So it's all about maybe reworking the finances or investments or whatever it is. You want to be flexible and adaptive with this area, but see what shapes up. Monday and Tuesday, there might be some new things about this. It might have to do with relationships, which again, we'll look at, but maybe it's, involving partnerships or, those like someone in your life or something on a financial level. Could be a new beginning with that in some way. Now, let's look at the work. So Mercury trining Saturn. Mercury is your 10th house ruler. Yep. So there could be some stability again with the productive work stuff midweek. And then the end of the week when Mercury goes into Aries, there could be a bit of clarity with the work if it's been more uncertain or doubtful or unclear in any way. All right, so now let's look at the relationship stuff. Very important. The new moon's in your 7th house of relationships this week. And it's already been a big emphasis for you. I think it's been great to be focused on this area. Again, learn about this area with Venus retrograde, but now a new beginning here. See what shapes up Monday and Tuesday with this. I think you're learning a lot about what you value in relationships, and whatever new seeds are being planted, I think you'll find them being cultivated as we go through these next 29 days and even next 6 months, actually, involving these one-to-one connections. So along with that, the Jupiter squaring up to Pluto does involve relationships for you. So midweek, after that new moon, the whole relationship stuff does have this sort of challenging energy to it. And again, just like I was saying with yourself, as you're making these positive changes with yourself, I think it's also about maybe making some changes with those relationships. Maybe not specifically, tangibly, but with your perspective of them. Maybe changing your perspective, you're seeing things in a new light, you're willing to face some fears to make some changes in this area. And again, the more willing you are to do that, I think the more constructive this can be. All right, so Virgos, the way I would sum up this week is certainly a lot of emphasis on relationships, new beginnings here for the short term and the long term, particularly about your values in those relationships. You're going through more transformations and changes in terms of you really expanding your independence, your personal needs. That's been Jupiter in your first house. It's a very positive energy. But this week, maybe facing some fears or taking some steps to do so. If you're guided to around Thursday, Mercury trining your ruler, Saturn trining your ruler Mercury does give you a bit of stability around Wednesday. And then at the end of the week, when Mercury leaves Pisces, you could gain a bit more clarity if there has been any fogginess or uncertainty in general. All right, so Virgos, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. If you'd like a personal reading, there's a link down in the comment section for that. But have a great one, and I will see you all next time. All right, Libras, let's have a look at your weekly forecasts. Looking first at your ruler, Venus, who is retrograde. So still good to be flexible and adaptive. See what new things are coming into your life at the moment. A lot of you are learning a lot about yourself, a lot about what you want in life. And I think a lot of it does have to do with your work or your routine or personal growth and development. But we'll look at the work sector a bit more in detail. But you do have a new beginning here at the beginning of the week. And it could certainly be involving a new you in many ways. But again, with the retrograde, you want to be flexible and adaptive, while your ruler is still retrograde, but still a great time to maybe plant some new seeds involving what you want in life, your goals, your ambitions, things like that. Even your self-image could be going through some sort of new transformation. So let's look at the financial sector. Mars is in your seventh house of relationships. So maybe through your relationships, you could be developing the financial sector. For some of you, might be feeling a bit of ease as Saturn leaves that second house of yours, giving a bit of, if you've been feeling, this past couple years, there's been more limitation with this area, or you've been having to work extra hard here, or something like that. Might be slowly but subtly feeling a bit of ease as Saturn leaves there, but he is going to go retrograde and go back in. So there's still work to do with the finances, but I did want to mention that Saturn is technically slowly but surely leaving that second house. But anyways, back to this Mars. Yeah, so Mars is going to be sextiling up to Neptune these first couple days of the week. So maybe there is a bit of flow or opportunity or something like that. On a minor note, maybe involving the financial sector for you. All right, now looking at the work, the key area for you this week, a new moon in your sixth house, which is a new beginning with your daily life, your work, your crafts, your skills, all of this stuff that you essentially do on a day-to-day level. So with it conjoining your ruler is that there's a new beginning, not only with this, but with you. And it could certainly be about your role in the work, your crafts, your particular goals with it, and how to cultivate that stuff, while again, still being flexible as new information comes to light during this Venus retrograde over these coming. At this point, I think she's going to go direct pretty soon, actually, but certainly this week she is retrograde. All right, so that's the work sector in terms of the new beginnings there. Now, in regards to relationships, again, you do have Mars in the seventh, so a lot of you are very direct in your relationships at the moment, which can be great, or you're very motivated in this area. So that's good positive energy there for both your personal needs and relationships and directness and even passion too in your relationships. If it's on a romantic level, Mars can certainly help you, get that. But yeah, directness, and even too, by the end of the week when Mercury goes into that 7th house on Sunday, and going into next week, you could find that you're enjoying a bit of communication and learning through those relationships as well. And yeah, there could be some flow at the beginning of the week, Monday, Tuesday, with relationships as Mars sextiles Neptune. All right, and I do want to mention this Jupiter square Pluto that you've got going on. It's more about involving your psyche and spirituality and all of this stuff. Jupiter's been really helping you connect to your spiritual body, your spiritual self, and maybe get some R&R or see the synchronistic aspects of life and, all this stuff, which is essentially helping you have more peace and tranquility. But yeah, the square, maybe there's some things that you're facing in your psyche this week or with spirituality, or where you can maybe make some changes so you have more rest and relaxation. But whatever it is, it does involve, usually with Pluto, facing some fears to make some changes. And I think the more willing you are to do that, I think the more constructive it can be. And again, as a result, probably feeling more peaceful and tranquil and accepting in your life as a result. All right. So Libras, the way I would sum up this week is certainly a new beginning with your work, new beginnings there involving you and all the stuff that you've been reconsidering about what you value with your work as well. And the relationships does have some good directness, independence there, maybe a bit of flow the first half of the week. And even too with the finances, since Mars does rule that 2nd house of yours. And yeah, and all of this Jupiter squaring Pluto energy, this whole transformation occurring with your psyche, which is helping you essentially find spiritual liberation through acceptance in your life. All right, so Libras, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. If you would like a personal reading, there's a link down in the comment section, and I will see you all next week. Take care. Scorpion and Fucus, let's have a look at your weekly forecast. So first things first, let's go ahead and look at your ruler Mars. Mars has been in your 6th house. Really good time to be direct with your work or in your work, through your work, or your routine or your daily activities. Good motivation and drive there, which is fantastic, especially because Mars is going to be in good aspect this week, sextiling up to Neptune these first couple days. So you could find that it's quite easygoing and things are flowing maybe just generally with you and where you're putting your energy. Now, in terms of the finances, this area is about that Jupiter square Pluto I was talking about in the collective reading. So there might be some fears you're facing or some transformations you're making with the financial sector. So it's really good to see if there is anything you want to make some changes with, some fears you want to face involving this stuff. And then once we face the fears, we're free to make the changes that we truly do want to see. Now, this has been going on since late November, so that gives you some context in terms of if there has been anything since then you've been feeling like you want to change and transform involving this area. This is a week where you can now gain some new insight, some new information, or a brand new perspective, which will then help you take the steps to continue to implement those changes between now and August 4th. All right, so this is the second aspect. The last aspect will be August 4th. So this last half, essentially, of this transit is all about implementation, doing the work, putting in taking those steps to see those changes you want to see here. And a lot of it, too, is involving your aspirations. So although not necessarily financial, though it could certainly be linked for you. If you've been feeling like you want to make some changes with your aspirations, or some of you with group or community related things, could be a great week to do that as well. All right, now in terms of the work sector, you got the Mars energy there again in your sixth, as I was saying. So you got great directness, great drive with all of that. It really is your life path this year, as it was last, to cultivate your career. Learn more about that. There's a lot of positive energy for you to just learn about your career and cultivate it with the North Node in the 10th. But the new moon could sometimes signify some new beginnings with your career, as all the new moons do for you, because the sun does rule the 10th, suggesting a new beginning perhaps with that. But I think where a lot of the new beginnings are for you generally this week probably has to do with your self-expression, actually. And maybe a lot of you are getting more into the self-expressive aspects of your career, or how your career can be creative or fun or entertaining, just more passion there. In general. So with the new moon on Monday and Tuesday, aside from the career, a lot of you are just generally becoming more acquainted with your passions, your interests. Some of you are starting some new hobbies, some new creative pursuits, creating some new things that you are passionate about that you can certainly cultivate over the next month and 6 months as well. All right, now moving into the relationship sector, this is seen by Venus for you, and the new moon is going to be conjoining Venus, so a lot of you are going to have some new beginnings, at least about your perspective on relationships. And I say that because Venus has been retrograde, so all this relationship stuff for you is going through this either reconsideration, or you're learning more about it, and it's good to be as flexible with this area as possible. But with the new beginnings, yes, at the very least, a new perspective about relationships. And then maybe even quite literally cultivating some new things with it. Some of you, it could be a very romantic time actually right now with the 5th house. 5th house is the house of romance, especially when your 7th house ruler is here. So new beginnings with that for some of you, I do want to mention. But again, it's about your personal passions. It's about you having fun and really having that sort of romantic energy in all your, interactions, which is really just playfulness and fun and, just self-expression when it comes to you and others, you working with others or in your relationships in life. All right, so Scorpio and Ophiuchus, that's the week in a nutshell. I'd say to sum this up, the most fundamental thing is this new beginning with your self-expression this week. Could be new beginnings with your relationships as well. But all in all, about cultivating that inner spark, that inner flame, what you're excited about, what's close to your heart, and cultivating that. Now, along with that context, Jupiter squaring Pluto can mean some changes with the finances or anything involving your aspirations. So a great week to do that. And Mars, your ruler in the 6th, giving you good directness and drive for your work or anything else on that daily level. All right, so Scorpio and Ophiuchus, have a fantastic week. If you'd like a personal reading, there's a link down in the comments section for that. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. And I will see you all next time. Take care. Sagittarius, let's have a look at your weekly forecast. So a very powerful week for you when your ruler Jupiter is going to be squaring up to Pluto around Thursday. So first of all, there's been a lot of, I think, expansion with your work or career lately. But, you know, when I say lately, I mean like the past 6 months. But more recently, over the past roughly month, Jupiter has been retrograde in your 10th. So you may have been reworking, or you're reworking, rethinking your career, redoing it, things like that. And that's a great way of really cultivating that area, because all this redoing you're doing could start to move forward in June. You know, you start to implement all of this stuff moving forward. So that's what you want to do, is use this time to rethink, reconsider, redo all of this productive, or if it's not career achievement and success oriented stuff in your life. But anyways, with the square up to Pluto on Thursday, maybe it's a time of making some deep changes in your life. If it's not about your career, maybe just about you in general. We are talking about your ruler here. So this aspect went exact last November, late November. So at that time, did you feel like making some changes, transformations with your belief systems, with your goals, with who you are, with your life in general? This could be a week where you start to gain some new insights, a whole new perspective, and it's all from all of this shedding that you've been doing involving yourself. All of these fears have been shed with Pluto in your first house. All these old patterns, unhealthy patterns, past patterns, been shed away. So between now and August 4th, we're at the second half of this aspect. And so it's now the time of actually implementing the steps. So the first half, which was since late November and now, there's more uncertainty with it. We're still becoming acclimated to the energy. But by the second half, between now and August, a really good time to now move forward and implement, take the steps towards, you know, creating the change that you may want to see in your life, either fundamentally with yourself, such as through your goals, your wants and needs, or could be involving that productive or career stuff. All right, so very powerful for you because we are talking about your ruler. But again, your ruler is retrograde, so you're still learning, you're still being, you know, there's still new information coming to light, so you do want to be flexible in the process. Now, let's go ahead and look at the new moon, which is in your 4th house. So your energy levels and all this might be at a bit of a low at the moment, which is totally fine. It's the time of year for this, in fact. Things are essentially unfolding this week involving your home, family, location, or your health, okay? And so sitting with it Monday, Tuesday, see what new things are shaping up, and plant some new seeds, plant some new foundations in your life to really cultivate this more personal side to life. And I think you'll notice over the next 29 days, in the next 6 months, yes, things are certainly unfolding involving this area. All right, so let's look at the financial side of things. This is seen by Saturn for you, who is slowly easing up out of the 12th. So some of you are gaining a bit more clarity involving finances or investment stuff. If you felt like there's been more uncertainty about it or cloudiness about it over the past couple years, while Saturn was in the 12th. Now, Saturn's not totally out of your 12th yet, so it's a subtle energy we're talking about. In fact, he's going to go retrograde back in there a little bit later in a couple months. But on a slight note, maybe things are just slightly becoming a bit clearer in this area, and maybe even a bit more motivating, giving you a kind of a glimpse of what it'll be like once Saturn actually does leave the 12th house and go into your 1st house, I think at the end of this year. All right, so that's that. But also Saturn will be trining Mercury around Wednesday, so you may find a bit of flow perhaps, or something new you're learning about the financial or investment stuff that could be supportive. All right, looking now at the work sector. Again, this is very much involving Jupiter square Pluto because of all the career stuff we were talking about. So yeah, you facing fears, making those changes there can be a very constructive way of working with this. All right, Venus does rule your 6th house, so there might be a new routine or some new things shaping up with your work actually. And maybe it is associated with, again, the more personal side to life, or home, family, health, things like that with your work. But whatever it is, in either case, I think some new beginnings are unfolding with the work. And again, with Venus retrograde, you do want to be flexible as possible when it comes to the daily routine at the moment, just because you're learning so much about it until Venus does go direct. All right, the relationship sector. This is Mercury. Mercury is trining up to Saturn again on Wednesday, so there could be a bit of flow or support involving relationships at that time. And Mercury is going to go into Aries on Sunday, going into next week. So he's coming out of debilitation of Pisces. So if there's been uncertainty about relationships, or if it's been more behind the scenes or more personal or something like that, Mercury going into the 5th house is much more fiery, much more passionate. Gives you not only clarity with relationships, but probably a willingness to be quite playful, fun, expressive in them as well, which I think you have been very direct with your self-expression lately with Mars in your 5th. But in terms of relationships, it could be emphasizing that going into next week. All right, so Sagittarius, have a fantastic week. If you'd like a personal reading, there's a link down in the comment section. And if you have any questions, let me know. But have a great one. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. And I will see you all next week. Take care. Capricorns, let's go ahead and have a look at your weekly forecast. So first, looking at yourself, your ruler Saturn is kind of inching into your 12th house now. So you may be finding that, although not greatly, it might be a time of maybe getting some R&R and rest and all this kind of stuff to connect with your spiritual self. But I think things are still very much about your aspirations, with Saturn still very much close to your 11th house. And so I think it's still a great week to be cultivating those aspirations of yours. So in terms of the new moon will be in your 3rd house of learning. 3rd house is also about communication. It's about business or trade. It's about your peers and your siblings. Basically anything that is about others of equal status that you're sharing with or trading with, exchanging ideas with, or learning from, which again includes books, or maybe some of you might actually be writing your own book, or starting some new writing projects this week. So listen to this around Monday and Tuesday. You'll likely see that there's some new things shaping up with this, and then put energy into whatever it is that you are seeing as the week unfolds. Now, the new moon conjoining Venus does emphasize that you're learning a lot about what you value in regards to these 3rd house matters. And I think with Venus retrograde in the 3rd, though, still being flexible and adaptive and just learning in general about these 3rd house things. All right, now this Jupiter squaring up to Pluto energy is involving your 9th and your 12th house. So when it comes to long distance matters, when it comes to travel, or some of you higher learning, philosophy, university, things like this has all been expanding for you, but at the same time, lately, about the past month, has been going through a reconsideration process or a redoing process. So that's what you want to do, is continue to redo these things that are about expansion. And this week, though, there might be some steps you can take, some things you can transform if you are guided to do that. Maybe there's a whole new perspective. Maybe you're getting some whole new insight about these 9th house matters. And with those insights, you can be implementing them between now and August 4th. All right, because we're going to be in the 2nd half of this collective yearly transit. And so between now and August, it could be about now pursuing this, implementing it, making those changes, even though it might require facing some fears to do so, or it might require taking some steps, action, things like that, to make those changes that you do want to see. So around Thursday, there should be some new perspective shift, and then that should give you the, I think, clarity in terms of what to do. And then you can put the action steps to do that between now and August. All right, so that's the general forecast. In terms of your finances, this is also seen by Saturn, who rules your second. Maybe there's a bit of uncertainty slowly developing with the financial stuff. Again, that might be Saturn dipping into that 12th house briefly over these couple months. But yeah, it could be too that's just, the finances is something that is more about you guys cultivating a bit more acceptance with, going with the flow, and understanding things do come in divine timing, especially because you've already had Neptune in your second house, which is very much about the same things. And the South Node's been here too. So there's a lot of past patterns and unhealthy things and fears and beliefs that are being released regarding the whole financial stuff. So as you clear, it's all about, again, finding spiritual liberation with this area and peace. Some of you might find too with Saturn in your 12th that you can be making income from more receptive or spiritual or psychological pursuits in life, just to mention that as a side note. All right, so that's the financial side of things. In terms of your work, Mercury trining Saturn on Wednesday does give you a bit of good flow, I think, with your routine, actually. Midweek, bit of flow there, constructive, grounded, could be very good, and communicative. You could even have really good mental aptitude with Mercury trining your ruler. Now, Venus is retrograde, who rules your 10th house of career. And this is, again, in the 3rd house of the learning, the reading, the writing, the communication, business, trade, all this type of stuff. So your career could be emphasizing this at the moment, but you still want to kind of, you're redoing it. It's being reworked. So continue to do that this week. But you may actually find that there's a new beginning shaping up involving your career on some level Monday and Tuesday as you go through the week. And again, as long as you're flexible with it, I think it's great. And these new beginnings can be certainly long term. All right, let's look at the relationship sector. This is always seen by the moon for you. So the new moon suggests maybe that the relationship sector is kind of at a low at the beginning of the week. But as the week unfolds, there's a bit more momentum and energy to be cultivated in that area. And the new beginning here could all be about communication in relationships, or about your perspective of them, with the new moon being in your 3rd house, especially because it's conjoining Venus, which is already about that anyways. All right, so Capricorns, the way I would sum up this week is a new beginning with your perspective, the mental stuff, practical things in your life. By the way, you do have good drive and motivation when you're putting it towards things like your home, location, family, health even. That's where your motivation and drive certainly is. You could even start to think a lot about this stuff probably going into next week once Mercury goes in there. But anyways, new beginnings this week with that. It's involving your work as well and your career. And then all of this restructuring this week you're doing with what's possible with these belief systems, with the things that have to do with long distance matters or higher learning. Whatever's already been expanding for you, it's an excellent week to make some changes here that you might want to make from whatever insights you do gain around Thursday. All right, so Capricorns, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. If you'd like a personal reading, there's a link down in the comment section for that. But have a great one, and I will see you all next time. Take care. Aquarius, let's have a look at your weekly forecast. So first things first is your ruler Saturn, again, as a recap, has been at the top of your chart. Now, there might be a bit of easing up if you've been feeling like there's more, like there has been the past couple of years, a lot of restriction with your career, or you've been having to work extra hard on it or something. Things might be, on a slight note, easing up these next maybe couple months as Saturn slowly dips out of the 10th and goes into your 11th. And what that could mean is that a lot of you might start to feel a bit more motivated to cultivate your aspirations or future things, possibilities and potentials. That gives you a kind of glimpse of what mostly next year and onward will be about when Saturn goes into that 11th house. So along with that, let's go ahead and look at the financial area, because this is a very key area for you this week. You have a new moon in your second house of finances and investments, and all in all, your sense of self-worth and self-reliance. So a new beginning with this, kind of listen Monday, Tuesday, see what's shaping up with it. And especially because it's conjoining Venus, could certainly be some new things you're learning about what you value in the financial side of things. What is it that the money's actually buying? And some of you might even be with the retrograde reconsidering the financial investments, budgets, redoing the budget, maybe things like that. And that's what you want to be doing, is just be as flexible as you can in the process. But there's certainly things unfolding, this whole new perspective unfolding, and even a yearly sense involving your savings, investments, and financial life. All right, so along with that, Jupiter does rule your second house, and Jupiter is going to be squared up to Pluto midweek around Thursday. So you may be feeling like there's some changes you want to make in this area. Maybe there's some fears you want to face so you can make those changes. You can get a glimpse of this by looking back to late November, if at that time you felt inspired to make some changes with the financial stuff or the aspirations, or on another level. And just as a side note, maybe about openness and intimacy in your life. It could be a great week to make some changes so you're really connecting to life on a deeper level. Or maybe you're, working with others' finances or others' investments or something like that. But anyways, generally with the finances, there is this restructuring that's taking place. And the restructuring is with your perspective. You're beginning a new perspective around Thursday about this stuff, and it's going to be allowing you a bit of clarity, or at least knowing what to do between now and August is when you want to implement this stuff. So Jupiter's retrograde, again, just like that Venus, you want to be flexible, adaptive with this. Everything's not quite solidified just yet, but if you gain any insights about making some changes involving finances, involving your values, it can be an excellent week to start to do that between now and August. And you may face some fears to do that. It might be uncomfortable. You might have to take some steps. But again, it can be very constructive with that perspective. All right, let's look at the work sector. This is, again, seen by that Saturn in the 10th house, maybe a bit of easing up with that. The moon rules your 10th house of career, your 6th house of work. So there is this sort of subtle time at the beginning of the week involving your routine. There's a bit of, it's a lowered energy time, but as the week unfolds, probably things picking up with the routine as we go through it. Mars does rule the 10th house. Mars is very well aspected, particularly Monday through Tuesday. During the new moon time, you could find a bit of flow perhaps with your career, a bit of easygoingness, and just more of an acceptance about the whole area probably. All right, looking at the relationship area, this is really the life path for you at the moment. The North Node is in the 7th, as it was last year. And this whole year, just such a great time to be learning about relationships, trying some new things there, and just see where life takes you. That's where the life path is. The Sun does rule your 7th, and the new moon does suggest that the relationship area might be at a low at the beginning of the week, but again, starting to increase as the week unfolds. All right, so Aquarius, the way I would sum this up is certainly a new beginning involving your values, and it could certainly be financial for a lot of you. Midweek, maybe making some transformations and changes to, restructure this area, make some changes you want to see in this area. And that could all be a very positive thing as you move forward between now and August. All right, you do have Mars in your 3rd house, I do want to mention, so your communications and learning. You can have a lot of motivation to learn right now, which is great. Good directness with your communications, which is great. And depth, openness, intimacy. There's so much to learn about that with Jupiter retrograde and relying on others a bit. And, because we live in an interdependent world. and getting into that trust and interdependency perhaps in healthy ways, or freeing yourself up from any unhealthy interdependency or bondages or chains or debts even. Can be a great way of working with it as well. All right, so Aquarius, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. There's a link down in the comment section if you'd like a personal reading, but hope you all have a great one, and I will see you all next time. Pisces, big week for you all. Let's go ahead and have a look at what we've got going on. First of all, happy birthday for those of you Pisceans who are watching this for your sun signs, who have your birthdays this week. But for all of you, sun, moon, and ascendant, you all have a new moon in your first house. So kicking off the week on Monday and Tuesday, although a subtle time, a low energy time, it's great to be listening to some new things, to just see where life is taking you, because in a solar sense, this is usually a very significant time when we do have a new moon in the first. Could be gaining some more insight about what you want out of life, about who you are, about your goals, your ambitions, your self-image, all of this stuff relating to yourself that as the week unfolds, you can certainly be cultivating. Now, there is but on a minor note, there is some reflection that you're doing about yourself and about what you value in life. And that's Venus going retrograde through your first house. Some of you are even redoing your self-image as well, the things you find beautiful in life. So being flexible, but at the same time, yeah, it's great to slowly but surely build a bit of momentum now as you go through the week involving your life and yourself. It's all in the first house. It's an active house, and you're a very watery sign, right? Pisces, receptive and all that, but relatively speaking, really good for moving some things forward. All right, so along with that new moon, it is a transformational week for you. On Thursday, Jupiter, your traditional ruler, does square up to Pluto. So I think you'll find that it's an excellent week to make some changes. Around Thursday, you may gain a whole new perspective on things. And I think a lot of it is about relationships, which we're going to look more in detail at, and also about career, which we're going to look in detail about. But generally speaking, an excellent time for you to be making whatever changes you want to make moving forward between now and August, basically. Okay? Now, your ruler is still retrograde. So, even though all the stuff's moving forward with you and there's more focus and attention on yourself right now, which is great, it's all still being reworked, reconsidered, right? Reevaluated, much like that Venus retrograde in the first. So be flexible right now. But if you do find that there are some changes you want to make on Thursday or around Thursday, if you do find that there's some fears you may need to face or some steps you might need to take to do that, it can be an excellent time to slowly but surely start to do that between now and August, to make those changes you want to see. All right, so let's look at this now in terms of the financial sector. You do have Mars in your second house, so there's good motivation and drive here to cultivate the finances, which can be good. You actually have a good of easiness Monday and Tuesday involving it when Mars sextiles Neptune. Could be easy going about the financial stuff, or maybe even some financial opportunities for some of you as well. Now, looking at the work sector, this is where we really start to look at this Jupiter square again. This has been Pluto helping you restructure your career for many years, strip away all the unhealthy perspectives and patterns and things with it, and just restructure the whole foundation of your career. So that could be associated with the Thursday square. And again, you can think back to late November. If at that time you did decide or you started to think about making some changes with the career, I don't know. Don't let me tell you, but listen to your inner guidance. Maybe it's a good week to start to implement that. Maybe a good few months between now and August to make those changes there. All right, now looking at the relationships, again, very much associated with this aspect because you got Jupiter in the 7th house. Now, this area is where the expansion is. And although maybe the past month you've been maybe rethinking, reconsidering the whole relationship dynamic, again, you might gain a whole new perspective about this area. Okay, and you can certainly make the changes that maybe you do want to see in this area. So it's more balanced. Because you got all this first house stuff. It's all this attention on yourself at the moment, your independence and all this. But then you're still expanding on the relationship front. So balance, right? And there's really no difference between the two. In other words, what others need, what your relationships need, is for you to be independent and clear and know what you want and have that very strong sense of self. And likewise, in order for you to have good sense of self and good independence, we do have to have healthy relationships in our life. So sometimes we got to make some changes, and sometimes it's not outward changes. Sometimes it's just changing a perspective, changing a belief system. And it often can be with Jupiter. But whatever it is, I think it's all very positive. And like I said, you can be implementing this stuff between now and August. All right, so Pisces, have a fantastic week. Thank you again for all of your likes, comments, and shares. If you'd like a personal reading, there's a link down in the comment section for that. Have a great one, and I will see you all next time.